Hey there. Ever feel like life's a whirlwind of stress, notifications, and endless to-dos, leaving you longing for just a moment of calm? In this video, we'll dive into Stoicism, a practical, down-to-earth philosophy that helps you stay steady no matter what life throws at you. From letting go of what you can't control to finding peace in the everyday, let's see if you've ever felt caught in the storm and discover how to stay light together. Staying light in the storm. A journey into Stoicism. There are days when life feels like a tangled ball of yarn. All I want is to sit still, sip a cup of coffee, and not worry about work deadlines or whether that stranger on the internet liked the photo I just posted. But life doesn't always play along. One quiet evening, just as my brain was about to boil over from an email that nearly pushed me to hit reply, all with a full-blown rant, I stumbled upon a quote by Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor, who ruled an empire yet ended his days writing to himself in a humble notebook. "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." For some reason, that line made me pause. I didn't send the email. Instead, I sat down and started wandering through the world of Stoicism, a world that, despite its cold-sounding name, turned out to be surprisingly human and deeply grounded. Stoicism doesn't ask us to become stone statues or endure everything like emotionless robots. Quite the opposite, it teaches us how to respond with reason, live with depth, and stay calm even when the world seems to be on fire. More importantly, it's not just about lofty ideals. It offers concrete, practical tools, like a small, well-worn toolkit we can carry with us through the chaos of everyday life. And I'd love to share with you 7 of those tools, not as a wannabe philosopher, but as a friend recounting a journey. Each practice opens the door to a different room in the Stoic house, one with soft light, warm tea, and the occasional laugh. Together we'll explore learning to tell what's within our control and what's not. Imagining worst-case scenarios, not to scare ourselves, but to be ready. Facing death not as an enemy, but as a gentle reminder. Writing to ourselves each night just like Marcus did. Practicing voluntary discomfort to realize we don't need much. Playing our roles in life with integrity and heart. And repeating timeless maxims as daily mental anchors. Ready to begin, let's start with the simplest, yet perhaps the most challenging truth, knowing what to care about and what to let go. 1. What's mine? What's not, the gentle art of holding on and letting go. One of the most exhausting feelings in life is trying to control something that was never yours to control in the first place. Have you ever been there? Waiting for a reply that never comes, trying your best to please someone, only to be misunderstood, putting your heart into a project and watching it fall apart for reasons completely out of your hands. I've been there more times than I can count. I used to think that living well meant being able to keep everything under control. But then I came across Epictetus, a poor philosopher with a rich mind, who said something beautifully simple. Some things are up to us and some things are not. It sounds like one of those obvious things we hear and nod to, right? But the truth hit me hard. Most of my anxiety, frustration, and sadness came from refusing to accept that one simple truth. When I sat there stewing in anger because someone didn't behave the way I expected, I was pouring my energy into something I could never command. But when I shifted my focus to how I responded, maybe by staying silent, maybe by speaking honestly but kindly, I felt lighter. As if I'd just put down a suitcase I didn't realize I'd been dragging around. The Stoics called this the dichotomy of control, the split between what's within our power and what isn't. It's really quite straightforward. We can control our thoughts, actions, responses, values, and how we choose to meet the moment. We can't control what other people feel, how things turn out. The weather, the economy, or whether someone woke up grumpy this morning. Once you get clear on this line, life gets simpler. It's like switching on the light in a dark room. And no, that doesn't mean we become passive or indifferent. Quite the opposite, Stoicism teaches us to be fully engaged, where we do have power, and to let go of the rest with calm clarity. In modern psychology, this is one of the cornerstones of CBT cognitive behavioral therapy because it helps break the cycle of helpless overthinking. When the mind knows what's truly its responsibility, it stops running wild in circles chasing shadows. These days, whenever I'm tangled up in a tricky situation, I ask myself, is this within my control? If yes, I act. If no, I exhale and release. 2. Imagining the worst. The art of not being surprised. I know it sounds strange, but sometimes imagining the worst possible outcome is the best way to avoid falling apart. Not because I'm pessimistic, actually. I used to be quite the dreamer, the kind of person who believed everything will be fine even when the ship was clearly sinking. Then one day, I stumbled on a piece of advice from Seneca, a man who juggled politics and philosophy like a Roman version of Marcus Aurelius meets Oprah. The man who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive. In plain English, if you've already imagined trouble showing up at the door, it won't knock you flat when it actually does. It's kind of like how Vietnamese moms always carry a raincoat, even when the sun is blazing, not because they're worried, but because they've rehearsed the storm in their heads. In Stoicism, this practice has a fancy Latin name, premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. But don't worry, it's not about being gloomy or inviting misfortune. It's about psychological training. Stoics would spend a bit of time each morning imagining what could go wrong, getting criticized, rejected, stuck in traffic, losing money, or stepping in someone's abandoned chewing gum. And then they'd smile and go about their day, thinking, if it happens, I saw it coming. If it doesn't, bonus. At first I thought, isn't that just setting yourself up to feel worse? But strangely enough, the opposite is true. When you regularly rehearse setbacks in your mind, you stop panicking when they actually happen. It's like fire drills or watching so many horror movies that you don't flinch when the ghost shows up anymore. Let's say you're preparing for a presentation. If your only plan is, it'll go great, you're setting yourself up for shock. But if you've already thought the slides might glitch, the audience might look bored, I might stumble over my words, then you're ready to respond with grace. And if none of that happens, even better. Interestingly, top athletes, military teams, and successful entrepreneurs all use this technique. Not because they enjoy stressing out, but because they don't want fear to catch them unarmed. They don't run from fear, they rehearse it, tame it, and move on. For me, this practice hasn't made me gloomy, it's made me peaceful. I no longer beg life to go exactly as planned. Instead, I train myself to stay steady when it absolutely doesn't. And sometimes, in the middle of these imagined disasters, I find out something quietly beautiful. I'm stronger than I thought. 3. Memento mori. Death and a cup of tea. I used to feel pretty awkward talking about death. It always seemed a little inappropriate, a bit unlucky, or at the very least something guaranteed to bring a family dinner to a screeching halt, as everyone suddenly pretended to be very focused on chewing. But then I discovered that in Stoicism, death isn't treated like some lurking monster in the shadows. It's more like a quiet old friend who occasionally taps you on the shoulder and says, "Hey, don't forget, this game has a time limit." The Stoics even gave it a name that sounds like a magical spell from ancient Rome, memento mori. Remember, you will die. It sounds a little gothic at first, I know, but funnily enough, it turned out to be one of the most liberating ideas I've ever encountered. The more I allowed myself to truly think about death, the more awake I felt while living. I found myself delaying less overthinking, less yelling, less, especially, over things that absolutely weren't worth my blood pressure. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, and perhaps the most stoic CEO in Roman history, once wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." That line hit me like someone had unplugged my brain. Not because it was scary, but because it was so unflinchingly true. If I could vanish this very day, would I still spend my morning stewing over a punctuation-free email? Would I still postpone calling my mom because tomorrow will be fine? Probably not. Stoicism doesn't tell us to live recklessly or quit our jobs and book a one-way ticket to Iceland. It simply whispers every day we live is one less we have, and no one knows how many are left. So maybe don't panic about making your life epic. Just focus on making it genuine, kind, and honest. Instead of chasing some vague greatness, learn to cherish what's already in your hands. This breath, this moment, this cup of tea. Oddly enough, when I taped a small note to the corner of my desk that read, "If today were your last day, how would you live it?" I didn't spiral into existential dread. I actually exhaled. I stopped forcing myself to be some hyper-productive superhero. I stopped comparing my timeline to the highlight reels of strangers online. I just started asking, did I live sincerely today? Did I love someone properly? Did I forgive enough to feel light? Turns out, when you stop running from death, it stops chasing you. It doesn't yell. It doesn't bang on your door. It just sits beside you, kindly nudging your elbow as if to say, "Hey friend, don't forget you're alive right now." 4. Writing to yourself. A small page in a long day. I used to think journaling was something middle schoolers did or writers who hadn't published anything yet. I even had a diary when I was little. The first page boldly warned, "Do not read." But I gave up after 3 days because, well, it got boring. As an adult, I thought I'd outgrown that whole inner monologue phase until I learned that Marcus Aurelius, yes, the mighty Roman emperor, also kept a journal. And what struck me most was this: he didn't write it to publish, didn't write it to look deep. He wrote simply to remind himself to live decently one day at a time. That journal later became Meditations, but if you read it, you'll see it's more like a series of whispered check-ins with himself. Things like, "You lost your patience today, try breathing slower tomorrow." For the Stoics, journaling was like a workout for the soul. Not a place to vent or dramatize, but a moment to pause and take a good, honest look inward. Writing helped them untangle mental knots and ask questions like, did I live by my values today? Was that reaction driven by reason or just my ego? What did I do that I'm not proud of? No judgment, just quiet courage and the willingness to reflect. It's a bit like unbuttoning your shirt at the end of a long day, not rushed, not dramatic, just necessary. I started doing this myself, nothing fancy, no word count goals, just a few lines each night. Sometimes I'd write, "I was a little rude to the lady at the veggie stall, go apologize tomorrow." Other times, proud, "I didn't say something mean when I really wanted to." And occasionally just, meh. But fine. Didn't spill coffee on the keyboard like yesterday. Progress. The strange thing is, the more I wrote, the more I understood myself, not in a clinical or over-analyzing way, but in a quietly familiar way, like reconnecting with someone you hadn't checked in with for a while. Writing reminded me gently but firmly, hey, no matter how today went, you're still trying. That counts. And honestly, that's something we all need to hear, whether we're emperors or just someone trying to finish work at a cafe at 10 p.m. 5. Practicing a little hardship so life doesn't catch you off guard. I used to think if comfort is an option, why not choose it every time? If there's air conditioning, turn it on. If there's hot water, use it. If I can get food delivered right to my door, why in the world would I walk through the rain to buy a loaf of bread? But then I came across Seneca, a wealthy Roman philosopher who lived in luxury yet advised people to occasionally sleep on the ground, wear rough clothes, and eat plain food. Not because he was eccentric, but because he believed that if we voluntarily experience discomfort once in a while, then when life forces it upon us, we won't panic. He wrote, Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself, "Is this the condition I feared?" At first, that idea made me laugh. Who in their right mind would choose discomfort? But then it hit me, maybe it's exactly because we never try living with less that we fear losing so much. The first time I tried turning off all the comforts, no AC, no phone, eating plain rice with soy sauce, I thought I'd be miserable. But after a few hours of Wi-Fi withdrawal and sweating through the afternoon, something surprising happened. I felt light, like truly light. I was still breathing, still smiling, and somehow still okay, even without anything Instagram-worthy to show for it. Stoics don't glorify poverty. What they remind us is that we become fragile when we rely too much on comfort. And if we never practice doing without, then when life inevitably takes something away, as it always does, we don't just suffer from the loss. We suffer from the shock. Practicing voluntary discomfort is like a strength training for your soul. It helps you tell the difference between real needs and just habits dressed up as necessities. You don't need to sleep in a park or lock your phone away for a week, though. Hey, more power to you if you do. Just start small, walk instead of drive, eat a super simple meal once a week, sleep on the floor now and then, or take a cold shower on Fridays. Not to punish yourself, but to gently remind your body and mind, hey, I can survive this. I'm not as fragile as I think. And the moment you know you can survive without something, you become less afraid of losing it. And when you're no longer afraid of losing, your life starts to feel a lot lighter. 6. Play your part well and stop trying to rewrite everyone else's script. Here's something odd about life that took me quite a while to figure out. Most of the time I wasn't stressed because of my role. I was stressed because I kept wanting to trade roles with someone else. I'd see someone successful and think, why can't I do that? I'd see a friend happy in their family life and wonder, am I missing something? And sometimes I just wished I could sit back, do nothing, and watch life unfold like a never-ending TV show. Then I came across a passage by Epictetus, the famous Stoic teacher, who used to be a slave, who said, "Life is like a play. You don't get to choose your role, but you do get to choose how well you perform it." That hit me hard. Not because I hadn't heard the life is theater metaphor before Shakespeare said it too, but because for the first time I felt genuinely okay with my script. Instead of being annoyed that I wasn't the lead in someone else's movie, I started paying attention to the small but meaningful scenes in my own. The Stoics called this idea role ethics, the belief that we each have a set of roles and duties in life, and the goal isn't to escape them, but to fulfill them with integrity. If today I'm a son or daughter, I show up and truly listen to my parents. If I'm a friend, I don't respond with a half-hearted emoji just to keep the conversation alive. If I'm a worker, I do my job decently even if no one's watching. And if I'm simply being me, then maybe I stop wishing to be someone else and start playing this one role. I can't trade away the role of a human being living a once-in-a-lifetime life. What I've learned is this: the hardest part of playing your role isn't memorizing lines or being impressive. It's not interrupting other people's parts, not grabbing for the spotlight, and not quitting halfway through just because you're not the star. But something changes when you truly inhabit your role. Even if your story doesn't come with dramatic music or standing ovations, it becomes something worth living. You no longer need applause at the end of the show, just the quiet knowledge that you showed up fully present. 7. Amid all the noise, how to really hear yourself. There are days when my mind feels like a bustling marketplace with thoughts swirling around like leaves in a strong wind, and even the smallest issue turns into a full-blown inner drama. Deadlines, unanswered texts, unread emails, notifications from a dozen apps. And on top of that, the invisible sounds of worry, fear, regret, comparisons, and that relentless inner voice asking, what am I even doing with my life? It's strange, I might be sitting perfectly still physically, yet inside my head, it's as noisy as a rock concert. Then I discovered a beautiful Stoic concept, inner stillness. And not in the sense of meditate for 60 minutes and achieve enlightenment, but rather the ability to prevent the chaos outside from hijacking the space inside our heads. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." It might sound a bit dreamy, but he wasn't trying to lull readers to sleep. Here was an emperor, one with a schedule 1,000 times busier than mine, reminding himself to retreat inwardly for some peace. For me, inner stillness isn't about having no problems at all, but about knowing how to prevent those problems from taking over every inch of my mental space. It's about learning to sip my coffee without checking my phone every minute, breathing slowly instead of reacting instantly when someone says something harsh, and occasionally giving the world a timeout so that I can actually listen to my own thoughts. I started practicing with the simplest things. Sitting quietly for 5 minutes each morning, some days. I even just sat there counting the sound of the fan, taking walks without my headphones on, or even just washing dishes without cranking up a podcast. It might sound dull, but it feels unbelievably soothing, like after a long, hectic day at a crowded fair, finally coming home, turning off the lights, and lying peacefully in the dark, doing nothing but breathing. Inner stillness isn't reserved for mountain hermits. It's a survival skill for modern life. It's that empty space that keeps us from going mad when everything around us is too loud, and in that emptiness where the only sound is our steady breath, we suddenly hear something old yet heartwarming. I am still here. I am still alive. And I still have the power to choose how I live. Living an extraordinary life by being comfortably ordinary. If you've made it all the way here with me through journal entries, rice with soy sauce meals, morning silences, cold showers, and the occasional existential crisis while waiting for a reply on Messenger, then congratulations, you've just practiced Stoicism without needing a toga, a Latin degree, or a remote mountaintop. All you needed was to live, but live with awareness, with presence, and just the right dose of humor. Because in the end, Stoicism isn't some rigid doctrine trying to mold you into a heroic statue. It's more like an old friend sitting beside you, gently reminding you that life isn't always easy, but you can learn to meet it with grace, courage, and a slightly raised eyebrow. You don't have to be a superhero. You just need to be a real human one who breathes deeply, listens kindly, shows up for your role in the great play, and somehow still laughs even when your morning coffee ends up on your only clean white shirt. If this little collection of reflections made you smile, breathe slower, or simply feel less alone in your own tangled thoughts, I'd love it if you shared it with someone else. Maybe, just maybe, it'll help them find a bit of stillness in the noise too, and whisper to themselves, I'm still here. I'm still alive. And maybe that's already kind of amazing. If this journey into Stoic honesty resonates with you, let us keep the conversation going. Like and share this content to spread the wisdom of Stoicism with others. Subscribe to Stoic Happens for more insights on living a courageous, authentic life. We would love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and share how honesty has shaped your path or what you are reflecting on today. Your perspective could inspire someone else in our community